Welcome everybody to the Wake Up Call channel. This is a very difficult topic to cover on YouTube, but I'm going to cover it here. This is obviously stuff that I cover on the website and will be covering on the website and continue to cover on the website in regards to the Pandemic Treaty. Now, you may have noticed they're not talking too much out in the open about it because they don't want people to realize what's getting passed. And when they do talk about it, well, they talk about it as if we need it, of course. And they talk about it in regards to, well, oh my goodness, we better get this done. I hope we get this done, right? And the deadline is nearly here. Now, next week, the WHO and the World Health leaders are going to be meeting, and that's likely when it gets ironed out. But it's already ironed out. And this is just the illusion, so it doesn't seem like it's some type of dictatorship. They don't want to lose the Democrats, the liberals, the brain dead, the sheeple who think that the WHO is just a group of people who really care about them, care about health, are scientists, they work in the name of science. There's nothing about them at all that's tyrannical or insane or psychopathic. So they pretend like, well, you know, we're going to meet, we're going to talk about it. We need to get it done, but we need to iron things out. The whole thing is ironed out. What it does is it gives full-on control to the World Health Organization and other health organizations like the CDC to install lockdowns, okay? So the last experiment we saw pretty insane things occur, right? Well, it'll be more insane as we go further. Now, this time you won't be able to blame who's ever in power, likely Trump, right? Or whoever they put in power. Let's not go there yet, but whoever they put in power, you won't be able to blame that person because this is going to go above the heads of government. This is going to give them the authority to shut down stores, to shut you in your home, to quarantine, and even get you out of your home into FEMA camps, quarantine centers, concentration camps. Let's be real. That's what they really are, right? So this will give authority to unelected people. That's really what's important to note here. Now, yes, we can all look at this from the standpoint of none of the people in power are actually elected. That is 100% truth. Nobody in power, no one in the House, no one in the Senate, no president, none of these people are actually elected anymore. Everything is fully rigged, okay? But the illusion matters to keeping people trapped in the left-right because it makes them think that they're empowering people. It's their vote. They're working for them. This is part of the deception that they've continued to build in the minds of people over the years. But if people out there start realizing, well, wait, the WHO, these people just are going to pass this stuff and they're not going to have a debate here and talk. So that whole notion of, oh, they're trying to iron things out. All that's for is so that people don't get suspicious and make it, you know, and then in their mind, automatically they start saying, hey, they just passed this. Did they discuss this? Did they debate? That's part of the illusion. And it works. It works because the more they see stories where they're, oh, they're not going to get it passed. And then you see stories out there where they say, oh my gosh, we want this to get passed, right? The media saying, oh, it's a betterment of humanity. If this gets passed, it's got to get passed, right? This is the quote from Tedros, the WHO director. I'm sure you're very familiar with Tedros. Got one of those faces, man. You know, I call him just one of those faces. And you might say, what does that mean, one of those faces? You know, one of those faces just want to wham! You know what I mean? Every time. Gets me every time I see it. I just, oh man, clench your fist a little. This is a quote from Tedros. He says, give the people of the world, the people of your countries, the people you represent, a safer future. So I have one simple request. Please get this done for them. He encouraged countries who do not fully agree with the text to at least refrain from blocking consensus among WHO's 194 member states. Because it's for us, right? It's for our betterment. Just like the potion was for our betterment, right? Everything is for our betterment. That's what they always tell us, and we're supposed to believe. Now, if you're a sheeple, you believe whatever these people say, right? So Tedros is out there saying, give it to the people of the world. You need this. But they don't know what is in the fine print. And what's in the fine print is, well, let me read to you. Here's the article about the deadlines here. It goes into a little bit of why you need it, because, of course, this is from the NPR. This is state-run media, right? So it says there are a lot of bleary-eyed, sleep-deprived negotiators in Geneva, Switzerland. Always in Switzerland, huh? They've already pushed back their timetable multiple times. Now, with their deadline looming, these delegates have been working late into the night to finish what experts call one of the most important treaties of the generation. Their negotiations are focusing on a war, but not with guns and tanks. It's a war against viruses and other infectious diseases. Just the boogeyman virus that you can't see with your own eyes, right? Like I said, if you shut off the TV, If you lived without a phone, okay, during the outbreak, would you have known at all that it existed? No, you wouldn't have, right? Think about that. If you had no tech and nobody around you was regurgitating the propaganda, would anybody out there have known, right? Would you have seen people laying in the road with hives sweating? No, you wouldn't. Why do you think they conditioned you into saying, well, a lot of people have it, but they don't know they have it. A lot of people have it and they don't have symptoms, right? Because it was a psychosis. Okay. And then some people started getting sick once everything went viral, which means people started putting something that was able to shed onto other innocent people, right? People became ticking time bombs in essence and shed it onto other people. So if you didn't have the propaganda out there, you wouldn't have known it existed. The only way you would have known it existed is if you used your own two eyes. So if you went to the grocery store and you saw people lying dead in the grocery store, you would have probably been like, what's going on here? Maybe you were fearful. Maybe if somebody had 105-degree temperature laying on the ground, you'd be like, oh my gosh, there's something going on here. We got to stay inside. But no, of course not. It was a war on your mind, right? So like they say, the negotiations are focusing on a war, but not a war with guns and tanks. It's a war against viruses and diseases, but really it's a war on your mind. So delegates from 194 countries are racing to complete the treaty before the World Health Assembly starts next week, May 27th, which I'll cover. I'll cover everything that comes out of there. It's probably just going to be some type of, well, there's one temporarily put in place that we need to fine touch, etc. But then when they roll the thing out, it'll already be signed by all these countries, and the 194, it's pretty much every single country, the major countries, right? The other ones will just, everybody's under control. So they just give the illusion. They don't want it to seem too much like a dictatorship, like every single country's on board. It's just the illusion. So the annual gathering is attended by all of the World Health Organization's member states. At this year's meeting, members are scheduled to adopt the treaty, a legally binding agreement aimed at both preventing and preparing for the next outbreak. Because virus experts think it's not a matter of if, but when, how convenient, the next one strikes, this accord is one of the group's most highly anticipated agendas. Agenda items. Why is nobody talking about this like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? Interesting how now all of a sudden we're all supposed to be fearful of outbreaks, et cetera, because the technology wasn't in place. They knew that if they wouldn't be able to have control over people's minds because they wouldn't be able to see this out in the open. So instead, when they get them, and look, I know people go, well, I don't watch TV anymore. All right, well, the TV is obsolete in a sense. It's about your phone, okay? It's about your phone and it's about the internet. Everything's done on the internet. Everybody's on the internet. I can't even, imagine the real statistics on how often people are online, but I would assume people say you're awake for 15 hours, right? 16 hours, right? Let's say you sleep 8. You get a good 8 hours sleep if you're lucky. Okay, 16 hours. How many hours do you think people are online? 14? Everybody, unless you have a job that's completely offline, but you even see construction workers. They take a break, they're on their phone, right? So they're trying to connect, and what are they getting fed? Propaganda, right? So that's why they went forward, specifically with this whole outbreak, which they've had planned for a long time. Okay, they weren't just programming you and conditioning you with the programming out there. They were preparing for it and waiting. And then they were watching and seeing how often people were on the internet. How often can they get them? What are they looking at? What resources are they getting? And then every single form of media. That's why when it first came out, the conservatives didn't question it. They had to gain the conservatives' trust back after about a year of them pushing it on their audience by saying, oh yeah, this is suspicious. We're not on board anymore. Oh right, Biden swiped it out. Right? Trump's potion versus Biden's potion, all these narratives, absolutely ludicrous. The notion should be, does any of this stuff actually exist without the internet or the television? The answer is no. So this is some of the propaganda that they're putting out. This is from a university professor at Georgetown Law, right, where he studies global health, a professor named Lawrence Gostin. Okay, so they love putting this stuff. Oh, he studies law at Georgetown. Oh, health law. I don't know anything about that. I'll trust him. And he says something like this, right? Here's a quote. This treaty is the most important thing in my lifetime. Right? Oh, it's the most important thing, right? Well, of course it's the most important thing to enslave an entire earth of civilians, that the governments of the entire earth will enslave their civilians to an organization that works in the name of science. Keep in mind, the trust the science. It couldn't be more. All you got to do is label it science. Everybody thinks it's science. It's something that you can't question, right? It's pretty incredible, right? The only real science that exists is that God exists. That should be the actual science, right? But no, it's not. Men can have babies now too, so trust the science. So it goes on to say, stating the obvious, these are difficult negotiations. This is a first of its kind agreement. said Xavier Becerra, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, in a statement. Our first responsibility is protecting the lives and livelihoods of the American people and the security of our country. We cannot do that effectively unless we are preventing, detecting, and stopping outbreaks before they reach our shores. It says, why a treaty? The idea of a pandemic treaty was born at the height of the pandemic when glaring gaps in the world's collaboration and coordination became apparent, and many lives were lost as a result. Sorry, can't help it. By one count, more than 1 million people died because dozens of poor countries had next to no magic potions, while some wealthier nations were giving out boosters, right? And this is part of the hive mind of the Democrat. They believe this stuff, right? So what is Billy Gates and all these guys doing in third world countries all the time? Talking about how they donate all their money to giving this to people. And America, of course, oh, they gave it out for free because we're so wealthy, right? They gave it out for free here. I mean, give me they're like, we got to get it spread. This is what they're trying to convince people of why this is needed, right? And the truth of the matter is that then you have a one hive mind, right? You have a dictator, which is the WHO, over all countries. That's the point of it. But they tell you the point is that, well, we just got to make sure we help out other people who aren't as lucky and as privileged as us. So we'll give them the authority on it. And then we'll have one rule. And the one rule will be like China, where we have people locked in their apartments. And if the apartment catches fire, it's more important you stay inside and evaporate into dust than leave your apartment because you might cough and spread it to someone else. I mean, it's ridiculous. But anyway, for 2 years, delegates from all member states have been hashing out the terms of this new agreement in hopes of not repeating the same missteps. This has been a fraught process, so fraught that it's not clear whether all the member states will come to a consensus and produce a final document in time for next week's assembly. Not your typical negotiation. There have been a number of stumbling blocks. First, the negotiating process has been unorthodox. This is unlike anything that we've ever seen before, they go on to say. And look, they'll give you this stuff back and forth that, again, the UK government simply will not do it. The European Commission is being uncooperative. That's what they're claiming. This is the same European Commission. This is the same stuff going on in the UK. It's even crazier. They're doing this with the climate, which ultimately is the same thing. The climate lockdowns, restrictions. Do they look familiar? It's the same exact thing, right? So, they're pretending like, yay, we don't want to be too extreme over here, and then tell the citizens we're also going to, have the outbreak treaty in place too. It's going to be in place. Bottom line, it's going to be in place. It's a matter of when they announce it openly to everybody. None of these countries are acting against it. If any of these countries were acting against it, they would come out and whack them and put somebody else in power who agrees with it. That's all that it's about. It's making civilians think that this group is trying to work with governments that don't think that it's this crazy conspiracy of psychotic people who are going to throw you in prison camps and quarantine you. No, that's exactly what it is. They just don't want you to actually realize it. So should we be giving the authority of these things over to people that we don't know, that we haven't elected? Well, with science, so we don't need to elect them, right? That's what most of these sheeple will tell you. They're like, well, they're doctors, Right. I remember a lot of conditioning about mad scientists, crazy doctors, Dr. Frankenstein, so to speak. I mean, literally, they're acting out Dr. Frankenstein, are they not? Right? I mean, they're making cyborg human beings, in a sense, right? So everybody needs to keep their eye on this story, and it's a perfect time for them to do it. Why? Because they're not pushing a ton of propaganda about it, so people will hear it. It's not like something that's their day-to-day right now, right? For a while, if they did this during the outbreak, while everyone was paying attention to it sitting at home, they'd be like, no, I don't want that. They're like, oh, fine, put it in place. It's never going to happen again in my lifetime. Oh, yeah, it is. It's just a matter of when it happens, then you're going to start thinking that, okay, well, they're going to lock us down, but the government's going to go, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. Look, you voted for us. We did what we thought was best, your best interest. We gave it over to the scientists and the doctors, right? And the doctors and the scientists say, stay inside. Now, conservatives in America will obviously fight back against it, a lot of them. Okay, they probably won't pay attention to it. But again, this is something that will be in place. We'll watch how it plays out. Do not believe the stories about them or any conservatives out there who are rejecting it. There's stories circulating in the U.S. and affiliate markets, which means local news stations, about their Congress people trying to reject it. This is just part of the left-right. Okay, this is just part of them trying to act like they're working for you and they care about you. So they don't want you to, start a militia or rebel against rogue government officials, which they all are. So they have to make it still seem like they're doing things for your best interest. That's part of the CBD, central bank digital currency, right? Oh, they suddenly care. Oh, yeah, they're going to fight that. But go get crypto. It's not the same thing, wink, wink. Yeah, same exact thing. So I'll continue to cover this story. Just want to make people aware that next week is the big meeting. The propaganda is already out there. Like I said with Tedros and his statement, let me just reread his statement. It's too good to be true. Give the people of the world, I say too good to be true sarcastically. Give the people of the world, the people of your countries, the people you represent a safer future. So give us all your power, give us all the power to control all the civilians, and it'll be a safer future. Yeah, we could trust you. Yeah. Does the guy look like you could trust him? Like I said earlier. Oh, man. Got a face only Helen Keller could love. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.